Welcome to the Improv Breakdown. My guest today has been an improviser for over 24 years. She's been featured on other podcasts like Laughing Liberally Milwaukee and Improv Nerd with Jimmy Carrane. A speaker at the second Improv Salon, she wowed us with her incredible talk, Appreciate Your Own Pace. She's also an accomplished voiceover artist, and when she was 15, she sang a song at Carnegie Hall. I'm very excited to speak with the owner, artistic director, and instructor of Improv, MKE in Milwaukee, Michelle Gilliam. Thank you so much for being on the Breakdown.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow, I'm impressed with myself. No,
You should be. You've done a lot. You're very impressive.
You never put things together like that, but you do it so well. Thank you.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of source material to work with, so it was my pleasure. Michelle, at one point you weren't an improviser, and then you became one. Please tell me that story.
Yeah, so I knew from the time I was a little kid that I wanted to be an actor. I watched Sesame Street and I saw Savion Glover on there, the tap dancer. If you don't know who he is, Google him, get excited. He's awesome. And I saw him on there and I was like, oh my gosh, he's brown and he's on TV. And I was like, I'm brown and I want to be on TV.
Nice.
And also I don't know, he was just really awesome. I just like immediately like fell in love with him and thought he was like the coolest person in the world. And so I asked my mom if I could move to New York to be an actor when I was 14 so I could go to high school and things there. And she said yes. And I was like 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that. And then she forgot, but I didn't. And I said, okay, you said I could move to New York when I was 14. And she was like, no, you're not moving to New York. But my parents gave me every opportunity. I did First Stage Milwaukee here. I did the African American Children's Theater in Milwaukee. And then they did send me to New York in the summer times to act. And I took all kinds of acting classes here and in New York. But then I discovered improv when I went to high school here in Milwaukee. So yeah, that was me before, I guess.
So they just had like an improv troupe at your high school that you could audition for?
So my theater director, the department chair, came to me specifically and asked if I wanted to be the head or like the captain of the comedy sports team.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I didn't know what comedy sports was. He kind of explained it. And he was like, just call down there. Tell them who you are. They'll give you some comps, some tickets or whatever. And so you can see what it is and see if you like it. So that's exactly what happened. I went down there and I don't know, I don't talk about this a lot, but like I was in a wheelchair. I had some surgeries. And so I couldn't even walk like or get around or anything, but I looked at them on stage and I was like, I don't know how they do that, but I'm going to learn. and that was the beginning of my journey.
Just love at first sight.
Oh, completely head over heels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. It's kind of interesting that they asked you to be captain of the comedy sports team when you didn't even know what comedy sports was. They were like, we think you'd make a good captain of this thing that you haven't been introduced to yet.
Well, he'd seen me act, and I think he knew I didn't like to learn lines because I'd had some assignments, and I did some of the lines, and then I made up some of my own. But I had great commitment to those lines that I created, and so he's like, I think you'd like this.
Oh, that's great. How many of us do improv because learning lines is hard? I know I'm guilty.
Amen. Amen.
So that was a while ago. You've been doing improv for a while. What keeps you in the art form for as long as you've been here?
Yeah, well, I took some breaks, but it's weird because it doesn't feel like breaks when I had a business that was primarily a sales business, and then I had a sales job, and like you use the skills every single day. And I taught, improv concepts to the people that work for me. So what keeps me in it? Obsession. Yep. Healthy or unhealthy, we don't have to talk about that.
Great, yeah.
You know what? It's that rush of being on stage and getting that feedback from the audience. Yeah. Them just like, I love throwing a team that doesn't think they're ready, that I'm coaching on stage. because you have to learn how to ride the waves of the laughter of the audience, because that killer line that you think you're throwing out there, it goes flat, but then you say tomato and they erupt in laughter, and that new improviser is like, that wasn't even funny, but you have to learn how to ride that tomato hard, right? I want them to know and learn how to ride that tomato, but
Please
you can't. It's hard to teach that without them getting that.
Yeah, please tell me that you have a workshop called Ride the Tomato. Please.
I do now.
You
now,
do?
so,
Oh my god,
yeah,
that's amazing.
I'm teasing.
Oh, okay. You convinced me. I was like, oh, that's it. It's a real thing. No, you should. Michelle Gilliam, Ride that tomato. Sold out.
Right. That's right.
I'd take it. So, I've the more and more I meet more improvisers, the more I realize that, a large part is, the environment that we kind of grew up learning improv in. What was the Milwaukee scene like, when you were kind of cutting your teeth?
You mean besides racist?
Sure. Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, it was clearly there weren't a lot of women in professional comedy sports. There weren't a lot of people of color. Brian Green is literally the only person of color that I can remember. I mean, Joe Cortez is Italian. But
we're really reaching.
I know. Yeah. I'm literally trying to think. I don't think there were any other people of color while I was growing up. And so, that both it mattered and it didn't matter. Like I was already obsessed. I was already in love. And I also have like a little bit of like horse blinders about things that I want to do and create in the world. And I've been like that since I was very small. So, I can have an awareness of things, but not allow them to stop me. So, it was interesting. It was, I don't know how else to say. It was interesting. It was racist and sexist. When I was there, the guys like just stopped. They had this like epiphany of not putting their voices up like this if they were supposed to be a woman. And I remember thinking as like a 15 and a 16-year-old, I'm like, yeah, you're a person. You're not supposed to talk like this to prove that I'm a woman. Like, you guys are so weird. It's like there's been too many men on stage, clearly.
Yeah, it was understatement.
But I still loved all my teachers, all the guys that I had. And I didn't have any women teachers. I just thought about that. But I did have, women that supported me and women that I loved, like Beth Malusky and Christine Capriolo, Holly Ignatowski, Jean Wesley, Jill Lee. She wasn't even an improviser, but she was a bartender. And like, it was just really great to have her there. So I don't know. Is that the answer to the question?
All I do is ask questions and love wherever they lead. So I think it's a perfect answer. I dig it. Okay, so thinking back to like when you first started, do you remember, was there ever like a lesson that you learned, either someone taught it to you or you just kind of derived it yourself, that was like, has stood the test of time? You're like, man, I learned this early on and it is still 100% true to this day.
Yes. So Mark, it was literally my first workshop, my first time. I remember we were at the Jefferson Street location. We were out in the parking lot. It was a beautiful day. So he wanted us, it was Mark Redlick. I don't know if I said that yet, but he wanted us to be outside. So there's like 20 of us just out in a circle in the parking lot. And he told us to reach into our back pockets and pull out our cool card, throw it on the ground and stomp it. And that was the very first thing we did. I've never forgotten it. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, because it was like, yeah, you can't be cool and do what I saw those guys do on stage, or try to be cool, because it won't work. It won't allow for the fun and the funny to flow properly, right? You
Yeah.
can't be worried about how you're looking and whether you're looking good or whatever. You have to just like really throw yourself into the moment, or else, it doesn't work. And
Doesn't
I
work.
will never forget that.
Throw your cool card on the ground and we're gonna burn it.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, I love that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Opposite, what is a lesson that was taught to you early on that, with experience, you're like, I don't need this, or I don't even agree with it?
Um, you know, um, I can't think of anything specific
Nice.
because I take most things with a grain of salt.
Okay. All right.
And so it's not, I don't necessarily always have to challenge the person that's like saying it and make them feel or look like an idiot. I just have to be like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that in my
Right.
own being, and then do what I do.
So rather than internalize a lesson and then figure out later, you just like you hear it and you're like, probably not for me. Like you you do the sorting right away.
I do. And
Nice.
I have this thing where it's just like, I don't know, I just like listen to like, I'm so present. Like I know that these blanket rules can't work for anyone. And it reflects in my teaching as well. Like someone will ask me a question and I'll share like what my thoughts on it are. But and also like sometimes people will repeat back rhetoric to me. Like in one of my classes today, someone said, I know I'm supposed to lean into that. And I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel right for you as the character or you as a human being, you don't have to lean into it. That's, go the direction that feels good, for you and for your character. And I promise it'll still work out.
I love it, and for more in depth on this, for listening, like to check out Michelle's talk from the Improv Salon. Appreciate your own pace. So I idea of just
Yeah.
like you don't have to match other people, and I think that idea is so crucial, and certainly wasn't taught to, at least in my experience, to me enough. And I think we could all benefit from more of that.
Yeah, thank you. And also, like, I feel like I didn't have a benchmark to look at. Nobody looked like me, and nobody was, so I didn't pace myself after anyone else because, and nobody felt like me. I didn't want to be Eric Price, who I love and adore dearly. I didn't want to be, Steve Scholler, Mark Redlick, or Tim Higgins. I didn't want to be them. I thought that they did a great them.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be Michelle Gilliam, and that's who I get to be every single day.
I'm very jealous of the wisdom that you had when you were at an age where I had none of it. I was like, I want to be everyone except myself, please.
Aw. I get it though. That's common. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've even
So
heard teachers teach that. They say if you see something that you see somebody else does that you like, steal it. And that's fine. You can say that, but it's just like I feel like we're all so unique. Like why not like enhance what you do and who you are, and also teach others to help enhance, that beautiful brain that we all have, right?
100, yeah, a million percent agreed. Absolutely. Okay, so in my experience, like the idea of getting better as an improviser, like in baseball, there's numbers, right? In improv, we don't have any hard numbers. But what I've seen is that like my worst show and my best show then, and now my worst show, and my best show now, right? Like it's like the floors and the ceilings are raised. Has that been your experience?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure people don't like this, but I still say this, 90% of improv is bad.
No,
Like,
a million, 100% agreed.
you have to be a nerd to really love it and keep going back and keep watching shows and keep doing shows,
Yeah.
because sometimes they're gonna be good and sometimes they're not. Yeah, they absolutely, it's changed over time. I was a kid and I forced my parents and my cousins and my siblings to come to my show and pay $5. That was awful. And and literally uh yeah, there's people that won't go to shows to this day because they watched hundreds of my shows when I was a kid. And they don't understand like there's that long form is very different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm better now. I'm better.
Yeah, I promise. I promise.
I get that though. Time served kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But so when you have like, we all still have shows that we're like, that wasn't my best, right? But when you look at a show like in the last year or whatever that was like one of your lowest now, do you still see it as being like heads and shoulders above even what your best show was back then? And like, could you talk about kind of the difference of how that is?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's always just like confidence.
Yeah.
And just like, being sure of yourself, and also just knowing that it's gonna be over in 15-20 minutes, whatever.
Right.
I don't know, just like, yeah, just like confidence and trusting yourself, and going after those moves that you should have made at the time. I think that that's the difference to me between like a good show and a great show, is like you go for those moves. You don't second guess yourself, you stay in the zone, and you have an incredible show. Like, I had a great show on Friday night, and I still was like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. But I think that's what we do to ourselves all the
Sure.
time. Yeah.
So at one point you were a performer and not a teacher, and then you became a teacher. What was that transition like?
I mean, it was honestly, okay, this is kind of weird, but in a way, this is gonna sound awful, I was always a teacher. So this is what I did. This is how deep my obsession goes. So I volunteered at Comedy Sports before I could work there. I
Hmm.
wasn't old enough to work there, but Dick Chudnow would let me sit in the back. Again, still couldn't walk. I was still in a wheelchair on crutches because I'd had surgery, and I would write all the name tags. I would go to every single show. That's how I could go to every show for free. So then I learned the games as I was watching the shows. And I would ask the guys after I worked there, and I'd stay at the bar, what the mechanics were to every single show. Dick gave me a list of all of the games, and I learned every single game. And then I held practice twice a week after school for the team that I made audition to be on the team. And then I taught them myself every day after school,
Wow.
at 15. So um, I don't know. I've always been a little bossy.
So you were teaching as you were literally like learning teaching like basically instantly.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, great. Wow. That's very few people I know have been improvising and teaching the same amount of
Because
time.
I'm nuts. I'm nuts. I'm a super insane nerd. And like, I had guys, I mean, this is over 20 years ago, that were on my team, and they recently came to a show a couple years ago. One of them lives overseas and was just, in town with his twins and his wife for a couple of weeks. And then the other one is a lawyer here in town. But they were on my team, and they were just like telling people, they're like, she's our first teacher. I'm just like, it was weird, but yeah, it's true.
I love it. Well, I love it, and I mean the art form just benefits from having people like yourself who are obsessed and just put yourself into it this much. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Uh, what's something that like if you had a magic power to like just zap a lesson into every improv teacher's brain, one lesson that would benefit all of us? What do you think is like the most crucial lesson for an improv teacher to have?
Be confident in stopping the action if there's a possibility of someone being harmed. I feel like teachers are kind of afraid. I think it's gotten better over the last year, but if something racist, something sexist, something homophobic, a transphobic, anything else happens, that people are afraid to stop it. I had a situation in one of my classes where um, someone was kind of being racist, but it was a trans person being racist, and we got a chance to talk about it. And they totally understood like what was happening, and how they wouldn't want someone to make them feel that way on or off stage. And so just don't be afraid to stop the action when there's a possibility of someone being harmed.
Great lesson, and not an easy one. Like that's not everyone can be an improv teacher because that's not something we can all do, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. I love it. How have you? So obviously you've been teaching for over 25 years. So how have you seen your style of teaching evolve in that time?
Well, I'm not a child anymore. No.
Niche.
Well, I mean, I took a big break between high school and college teaching, and then to just a few years ago getting started back up. So, I mean, very different because there's always that pressure to be like the other improv teachers that people have had.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want to be like, no, that's not, there's value in how I teach and there's value in how that person teaches. But my journey is just like having more confidence in that the way that I teach is valuable and valid, right? Yeah, because again, there's not a lot of teachers that look like me.
Not near enough. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot though. There are some, which is great, and yeah, I get to do cool things and meet them. So.
Oh yeah. What what improv MKE like? When did it start? What was the idea for it? Based on what I see on social media, it looks like this very large thing. Tell me the journey of this.
Sure. So I had planned on starting my own theater. Well, I had plans to do so about 8 years ago when I was living in Madison, Wisconsin. And then I kind of quickly got moved to Boston to grand open some locations of my old company out there. So it got put on the back burner. And then I moved back to Milwaukee, and there was a theater already here. And so I started working with them and put them on the back burner again. Went to them to become a partner. I wrote them a letter of intent and they said no. I was like, okay, cool. So then that's how my Improv MKE was born.
All right.
I had found a place literally days before the pandemic to house my theater and do classes and shows and jams. And then the pandemic happened. So I wasn't able to execute physically. But luckily, some of the teams that I was coaching went online immediately. And then they ended up stopping, but I'm coaching other teams. I'm doing my jams. We're about to hit 100 jams at Improv MKE. And, I'm doing classes and drip-ins, which is a improv drop-in taught by a Black instructor, and we're doing drop-ins now and yes and practices, and so it came to be out of a need and a want for a community that I belonged in and felt like I belonged in, and that other people could feel that way as well.
Wow. And does MKE stand for something?
I love that question so much. What do you think it stands for?
Like Milwaukee with just a bunch of letters missing? I don't know.
You're right, actually.
Oh, great.
One of the best answers I've ever gotten is a friend of mine said, I thought it was just she doesn't live here. She goes, I thought it was just like, okay.
Improv, okay.
But that's like, if you're here in Milwaukee, that's what everything is, MKE. That's our airport code. Yeah, so.
Oh, it's just like, okay, standard. Okay. Okay, cool.
It's cool. Standard for Milwaukee, but not that many people know Milwaukee, so it's fine.
I love it. I love that kind of, I don't know if you knew Tina Jaxling, had the Bear stage, which is spelled Bexar. And when I had her on the show, it was like, the Bexar? She goes, no. If you're from San Antonio, you would know this. And I love those little like individual like localisms kind of thing.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay.
No, yeah, I thought that was hilarious. She's like, I just thought it was like with the little attitude, like, okay. And I was like, That is one way to do it.
So what is it? It's improv. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Okay. So you teach a lot. You've got a lot going on. It's amazing to me that you basically started it's all been pandemic, right? Your theater, your entity has all so far been pandemic, and so like when the pandemic's over, it's gonna have an automatic kind of graduation at that point, right? So do you already have plan? I mean, I'm sure you already have plans, but like, what's in the works? What's in the future?
Well, I'll tell you this. Improv MKE is definitely staying online. I love it. I think it's amazing. Not everybody wants to be a performer and be on a stage. Some people just want the skill sets for their everyday lives or for other industries that they're a part of. And they want those performance skills or communication or connection or creativity, whatever it is, or it's just fun for them. And that's totally cool. So Improv MKE is going to remain online unless and until it's not fun anymore, but it's so much fun. So I don't see it going anywhere. And we have such an international following. As far as a physical space, I'm just not going to think about that right now.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. And, I also, there's other things I'm not sure about what my future holds. So, so once I get that more settled, then I'll have better answers.
Fair enough. But what you've got is good to keep going as is for a while. That's great.
Yeah.
Because I started teaching, online classes based when the pandemic started too, and all my students are like, is this going to keep going? I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like 2 hours, no parking, from all over, 2 hours of joy. We're done.
Yes.
It's great.
It's wonderful.
I love it. Here's a silly question for you. Multi-day classes, one-shot workshops, or like coaching a team. Do you have a preference on how you disseminate your teaching skills?
No, I like the creativity of all of those.
Mm-hmm.
There's I feel like benefits to every aspect. I do enjoy coaching teams to watch their progress over time. It's so much fun. And also just like you can impart different lessons at different times for the specific needs of that team. Instead of, classes tend to end, but they also often turn into teams as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's
How
great.
about you?
Yeah, I kind of stopped coaching teams because I felt like, I remember back in the day in Chicago, TJ Jagodowski had a policy that he would, if you asked him to coach your team, he would give you 6 rehearsals. And then you'd have to find another coach or whatever. And I remember thinking that was like just a really cool idea because I've got 6 rehearsals that I think will really benefit your team. After that, I'm going to be like searching a lot for like, how can I help you, this, that, and the other. Yeah. And so I kind of like the more finite, if you're going to work with me as a team, let me get you to here and then go find someone else to get you somewhere else.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. What's a character voice that you do or have done that still cracks you up?
It's the little child from Britain that's a little bit murdery. Should we call Mommy and Daddy, Richie?
I think we should. Yeah, we should kill them.
Yes.
So creepy.
Oh, yes. I love that weird kid, that little psychopath that lives one of my best friends.
Come here, you little psychopath. Come here. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That was quite the joy.
You're welcome.
Have fun sleeping tonight. All right. Plugs. Where you want to send people? Where should they go to see more of you?
Yeah, my website, improvmke.com. Pretty much everything's on there. We have a private Facebook group called the Improv MKE Community. Facebook. I'm not on Instagram and Twitter as much with my business, but personally I am. But you can check those out as well. But the website is probably the best answer, or just like ask me a question.
just hit me up. Whatever. I'm
Yeah.
fine. I got time. Nice. Michelle, thank you so much for being. It's such a great time talking to you. Really appreciate being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And